Chapter 9. Spike's Three-Headed Cousin. If Hogwarts had taught Harry anything by spring, it was this. When adults said, "Don't go on the third floor unless you want to die a very painful death," they did not mean, "Please stay away from fascinating mysteries." At least, that was how Harry, Ron, Hermione, Tom, and Jerry seemed to hear it. By now they were deeply, deeply suspicious. Suspicious of the break-in at Gringotts. Suspicious of the way Hagrid had blurted, "Can't tell you what's in there, strictly between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel, over tea." Suspicious of Snape's sudden interest in Quirrell. And very, very suspicious of that third-floor corridor. "We should just look," Harry said one Friday night in the common room, voice low. Ron looked horrified. "Look at the place McGonagall said would kill us." Hermione, who had started the sentence, "We absolutely should not," 3 times that week, pressed her lips together. Curiosity sparkled traitorously in her eyes. "If something dangerous is in the school," she said, "someone needs to make sure it's safe. What if Slytherins find it?" Ron bristled. "Why do you always assume it's Slytherins?" "I don't always." Tom, sprawled upside down in an armchair, flicked his tail against Harry's shoulder. His eyes glinted. Jerry sprang up onto the table and mimed a giant padlock, then bursting it open, then a huge dramatic gasp. Mysteries were catnip to them too. Besides, the last time they'd gotten in over their heads, troll, bathroom, broken sinks, they'd come out with a best friend. How much worse could a corridor be? Famous last thought. They waited until the tower was quiet and the fire in the common room had burned low. Ron snored gently. Neville muttered in his sleep. Somewhere up in the girls' dormitory, Hermione's voice drifted faintly, reciting spell rules in her dreams. Harry eased his trunk open and lifted out the invisibility cloak. Tom's ears pricked. Jerry's paws rubbed together in excitement. "Just a quick look," Harry whispered, more to himself than to the 2 small shapes watching him. "We won't go in, just peek." Ron, awakened by Harry stepping on his slipper, swung his legs over the side of his bed. "You're not going without us," he grumbled. "I'm coming." "Me too," Hermione said from the doorway, fully dressed, arms crossed. "You 2 are not wandering around alone, honestly." Harry grinned. Within minutes, 4 children, a cat and a mouse were crammed under one shimmering piece of fabric, shuffling awkwardly through the sleeping common room. Hermione hissed, "Run, your elbow!" "That's my hand, thank you." "Ow, Tom, claws!" "Jerry, get out of my ear!" It was less silent stealth and more mobile hissing laundry pile, but they made it out without waking anyone. The castle at night was a maze of shadows. Moonlight painted silver bars on the floor through tall windows. Portraits snored or whispered. A suit of armour coughed discreetly and then pretended it hadn't. Under the cloak, they moved in jerks and stops. Tom clung to Harry's shoulder. Jerry rode in Hermione's hood, holding on by her hair. Twice they had to flatten themselves against a wall, once to avoid Filch and Mrs. Norris, the caretaker muttering darkly about students out of bed, and once to avoid Snape gliding past, robes swaying, humming under his breath about running the world. Finally, they reached the forbidden third-floor corridor. It looked ordinary. A long stretch of dimly lit hallway, dust, spiderwebs, and a large, heavy door bolted shut at the end. "Locked," Ron breathed with relief. Hermione rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Ronald." She slipped out from under the cloak and strode to the door. "Hermione," Harry hissed. "It's locked," she whispered back. "We'll just check." Ugh. She frowned at the huge iron padlock, then at the hinges. "Alohomora," her wand tapped. The lock clicked open. The door swung inward. The smell hit them first. Dog. Big dog. Tom's fur stood up in one enormous instant puff. Every muscle in his body screamed, "Spike!" Jerry's nose twitched. His eyes went wide. Spike was the neighbour's bulldog back in Privet Drive. Huge, snorting, slobbery, semi-permanent enemy to one cat and one mouse. He'd chased them across fences, through gardens, and into Mrs. Fig's hydrangeas more times than they could count. The smell pouring from the doorway now was Spike, multiplied. Harry stepped forward, heart in his throat. Tom and Jerry crept ahead of him, peering through the crack. The room beyond was bare stone, and in the middle of it, filling most of the space, was a dog. A dog the size of a small car. A dog with a broad, muscular body, patchy white fur with tan spots, short, thick legs, and a jaw like a wrecking ball. A dog that, from the side, looked exactly like Spike, except for the extra 2 heads. One on the left, one on the right, sprouting from the same massive shoulders. 3 spike heads, 3 sets of drooling jowls, 3 pairs of glinting eyes. All 3 were currently asleep, sprawled across a huge trapdoor in the floor, snoring like faulty motorbikes. Harry's brain registered: giant, 3-headed dog, trapdoor, definitely the thing Dumbledore had meant, very dangerous. Tom and Jerry's brains registered: Spike. They reacted accordingly. Tom's back arched into a perfect question mark. His tail turned into a bottle brush. His fur poofed to twice his size. His eyes quadrupled. Jerry's limbs pinwheeled. He leapt straight up, hit the underside of the cloak, fell back down, and flattened himself to the stone, quivering. All 3 heads slept on. One snored with a whistle. One blew slobber bubbles. The third mumbled something that sounded suspiciously like mailman. Hermione hissed, "We have to close the door." "Not yet," Harry breathed, mesmerized. "Look, the trapdoor. It's guarding something." Ron's face was several shades paler than usual. "It can guard it? We don't need to see." Tom, still stuck halfway between terror and fascination, inched inside behind Harry's foot. Fluffy's middle head twitched. Jerry squeaked silently, shoving his paws over his own mouth. The left head snorted and scratched its nose with one paw. Drool flung onto the stone like little explosions. Hermione spotted the glint of the trapdoor rings between massive paws. "It must be the stone," she whispered. "What else would Dumbledore hide here?" Harry nodded slowly. "I've seen enough," Ron said. "We can go now. Write it down. Never speak of it again." Tom's eyes tracked a single line of drool sliding toward his paws like lava. He leapt backward. Unfortunately, Harry's heel was right behind him. Harry staggered. His shoulder knocked Ron. Ron pinwheeled and crashed into Hermione. Hermione squeaked and flailed. The cloak slipped. For a second, 4 very visible children and 2 very visible animals stood in a line, like characters in a painting of Who Should Not Be Here. The nearest head's eyes snapped open. They were pale yellow, small and mean. They focused at first on the movement nearest its nose, Tom, then on Jerry, then on the cluster of humans. Its lip curled. A low growl rolled out, deep and vibrating, waking the other 2 heads. They rose, one after another, like a horrible 3-part sunrise. The left head cracked its neck and blinked sleepily. The middle head narrowed its eyes and bared its teeth. The right head, groggy and confused, yawned without realizing what it was doing. The yawn was so big, so slow motion, so slobbery, that for a surreal heartbeat, everything paused. Tom, standing frozen before that enormous, cavernous mouth, saw every single sharp tooth in horrifying high definition. His pupils shrank to pinpricks. Jerry's ears laid flat. His tail stuck straight out behind him like a board. Then the moment ended. All 3 heads roared. The sound slammed into them like a physical force, puffing the cloak backward, rattling Harry's bones, and sending Hermione stumbling back. The dog, Fluffy, Hagrid had called him, lunged to his feet. Trapdoor forgotten. Humans, cat and mouse in focus. "Run!" Harry shouted. They obeyed. The room erupted into cartoon chaos. Harry spun, dove for the cloak and yanked it up. It snapped over himself and Hermione like a shimmering sheet. Ron tripped over Harry's foot and went sprawling, half under, half out. Tom bolted for the nearest shadow, fur smoking with speed. Jerry shot forward like a grey blur, so fast his own tail barely kept up. Fluffy charged, claws scrabbled on stone. 3 heads snapped and snarled, jowls flapped, drool flew. The first bite came down where Harry's foot had been a heartbeat earlier, teeth clashing on stone with a horrible clack. Harry, invisible again, staggered sideways, dragging Hermione. Ron yelped as the middlehead's breath blasted his hair. Tom skidded, feet slipping on slobber, and careened helplessly toward the far wall. At the last second, he grabbed a dangling torch bracket, swung like a pendulum, and flung himself onto a narrow ledge. Fluffy's left head snapped at him, jaws slamming inches from his tail. Tom's fur scorched with terror. He scrambled along the ledge as stones lurched under his paws, the dog's head butting the wall and sending little showers of dust down. Jerry made for the trapdoor, old instincts shouting down, "Hide!" Then realized it was directly under the body of the thing trying to eat them, and reversed course in a rubber-legged skid. The right head's tongue lolled, eyes crossed. It spotted Jerry. A single giant paw slammed down. Jerry darted between the dog's toes at the last instant. The paw hit the floor, leaving a crater and sending Jerry flying. He pinwheeled through the air, squeaking soundlessly, then, smack, landed headfirst in Fluffy's right nostril. Everything stopped for half a beat. Jerry's eyes crossed. His whiskers stuck out at odd angles. Fluffy's right eye slowly crossed too, focusing on the strange tickle in its nose. The middle and left heads turned to look at their sibling, baffled. Then Jerry twitched. The right head went cross-eyed. The nose quivered. Every cartoon law Tom and Jerry had ever lived by gathered itself into that moment. The sneeze was unavoidable. It built like a storm. Inhale. Jerry's tiny body sucked further up by the vacuum. Right head's eyes bulged. Left head's ears flattened. Middle head braced. "Ah! Ah!" Jerry, realizing where this was going, flailed wildly and grabbed onto a nose hair for dear life. "Shoo!" The sneeze blasted Jerry out like a tiny furry cannonball, launching him across the room in a spray of dog snot. He flew past Harry's invisible shoulder, did 3 spirals in mid-air, and smacked into Tom's chest on the ledge. They teetered together, then toppled backward, landing in a heap in an alcove as stones shook. Dust drifted down over them. Fluffy staggered from the force of its own sneeze. All 3 heads shook like wet dogs, flinging drool in sticky strings. Ron, who'd just staggered to his feet, got a faceful. "Blurg, blurg," he spluttered, swiping at himself. The middle head, enraged, focused on the one human whose legs it could clearly see. Ron. Its lips peeled back. It lunged. Ron shrieked and bolted, feet skidding in slobber, legs pinwheeling comically as he barely kept ahead of snapping teeth. He dove under the dog's belly, slid on his stomach like he was on ice, and popped out the other side, hair full of dust and drool. Fluffy, overshooting, smacked its middle head straight into a wall. The wall cracked. Stars might as well have spun around its skull. The left and right heads both snapped at where Ron had been, bit nothing but air, then spun, jaws clacking together. They clunked skulls with a hollow bonk. All 3 heads wobbled. Tom and Jerry, dazed in their alcove, blinked at each other. Jerry's eyes spun briefly in opposite directions. Tom shook his head hard enough to rattle his ears, then peered out. Harry had Hermione by the arm, pulling her toward the door, invisible. "We have to go." "What about Ron?" Hermione gasped. Ron had flung himself behind a toppled suit of armor near the wall, helmet balanced lopsidedly over his freckled face. Fluffy's middle head crashed down, teeth snapping at the metal. The helmet crumpled like a tin can. Ron scampered away on all 4s, leaving the empty armor in a drooly heap. Tom hissed. If anyone was going to smack and chase Ron, it was them, not a 3-headed spike. He launched himself from the alcove ledge with a hissed battly yowl, landing mid-back on the middle head. He dug in his claws. The head howled, thrashing. Tom yo-yoed up and down on its loose jowls, eyes bouncing. He grabbed one ear in his teeth and yanked. The other 2 heads converged to snap at him and instead bonked each other again, teeth sinking briefly into their own shared collar. Jerry saw his chance. He zipped out, scampered up Fluffy's front leg like a lightning streak, and darted between the noses of the left and right heads. They both focused on him. He stuck out his tongue, waggled his ears, and did the tiny mouse equivalent of a rude raspberry. Then he ran. 3 heads crashed together in the ensuing attempted bites, all slamming snouts to stone. Fluffy reeled. "Come on," Harry shouted, fully visible again as the cloak slipped off one shoulder. He seized Ron's sleeve. Hermione grabbed Harry's. The children bolted for the door. Tom sprang from the dog's head to Harry's back, digging in. Jerry leapt from Fluffy's eyebrow to Ron's hair, using it like an emergency haystack. Behind them, Fluffy shook all three heads and roared. Huge paws thundered after them. They dove through the doorway in a tangle of limbs, fur, and panicked gasps. Fluffy's middle head lunged at the gap as they slammed the door. Jaws crunched on wood, splintering it, but not quite breaking through. Harry fumbled for the lock. Hermione's wand flashed. Alohomora! No, that opens. Finite! Oh, Colloportus! The door sealed with a magical sucking noise. Fluffy's teeth scraped and thumped on the other side. Hot breath blew through cracks. An enormous paw hammered at the door, making dust rain from the ceiling. Everyone piled against it. Harry, Ron, Hermione. Tom braced with all four paws, Jerry pushing heroically with his tiny back. "Push!" Ron yelled, even though pushing or not probably made no difference to 300 pounds of enchanted dog. Gradually, the pounding slowed. A low, frustrated growl vibrated through the wood. Then, grudgingly, Fluffy's footsteps receded. 3 sets of huffing, snorting breaths moved away from the door. The floor trembled as the giant creature settled down again, clearly deciding that if the snack couldn't come in, it would guard the trapdoor and sleep it off. Silence, at last, and, faintly, a rumbling snore. Harry slumped away from the door, legs shaking. Ron slid down the wall into a sitting position, panting. Drool dribbled down his nose. "I hate dogs," he groaned. Hermione clutched her chest. That was, oh my goodness. Tom lay flat on his back on Harry's shoe, all 4 legs splayed, tongue half out in a perfect cartoon dead faint. Silence, at last, and, faintly, a rumbling snore. Harry slumped away from the door, legs shaking. Ron slid down the wall into a sitting position, panting. Drool dribbled down his nose. "I hate dogs," he groaned. Hermione clutched her chest. That was, oh my goodness. Tom lay flat on his back on Harry's shoe, all 4 legs splayed, tongue half out in a perfect cartoon dead faint. Jerry lay equally flattened on Ron's knee, eyes spiraled, fur slicked comically back by dog sneeze. For a long moment no one spoke, they just breathed, hard. "Did you see?" Ron started. "It's teeth," Harry croaked. "It's 3 heads," Hermione squeaked. "Jerry in its nose," Ron added, a hysterical note in his voice. They all broke at that, laughter bursting out of them, wild and a little too high. Jerry, regaining his senses, sat up abruptly and wiped his face with great dignity, as if he'd meant to go on that nasal adventure. Tom cracked an eye, spotted him, and immediately fell into a fit of soundless giggles, body shaking. "That," Hermione said finally, voice steadying, "was Fluffy." "Fluffy?" Ron croaked. "Fluffy?" "Hagrid named him," Harry said weakly. "Makes sense if you've met his definition of little." They got to their feet slowly. "Trapdoor," Hermione said, more to herself than anyone. "Guarded by a 3-headed dog. No wonder Dumbledore didn't want anyone on this floor. That must be where the stone is." "Yeah," Ron muttered, "and Hagrid's probably taught it to fetch burglars and chew them up." Tom and Jerry exchanged a look. Fluffy might be terrifying and huge, but he also looked an awful lot like Spike. Spike, who had chased them, bitten them, flattened them, and, in a weird twisted way, been part of their life. Fluffy was Spike's nightmare cousin, big Spike energy multiplied by 3. But he'd also been called Fluffy by Hagrid, which meant somewhere in that massive slobbery heart there might be a dog who liked belly rubs and sausages. Tom's tail twitched thoughtfully. Jerry rubbed his chin. An idea flitted dangerously through their minds, an idea involving Hagrid's old gramophone, a lullaby, and maybe a giant enchanted chew toy. But that was a plan for another night. For now, they had confirmed 2 things. 1. Something very important and very dangerous lay under that trapdoor. 2. They could not, under any circumstances, get near it without being turned into chew toys. As they crept back along the corridor, Harry wrapped the cloak around them once more. Tom, now mostly recovered, perched on his shoulder, fur still slightly fluffed. Jerry rode in Hermione's pocket, periodically popping out to check behind them. At the end of the corridor, they paused. The door to Fluffy's room loomed in the dim light. Beyond it, 3 spike heads snored, huge and terrible, and, in a very strange way, familiar.
Tom lifted a paw toward the wood and flexed his claws. Jerry grabbed it, shook his head, and tugged the paw back. "Not tonight," his little eyes said. Harry glanced down at them, then up at the door. His scar tingled faintly. Somewhere out there, the shadow that had killed his parents was growing stronger. Somewhere, right under their feet, a legendary stone lay hidden. Somewhere, just beyond that door, a 3-headed spike stood guard over it. "It's not over," Harry murmured. Ron shivered. "I was afraid you'd say that." Hermione nodded, eyes already calculating risks and rules she'd have to bend. Tom and Jerry's whiskers twitched. Whatever came next, magical chess, deadly potions, flying keys, they had a feeling Spike's 3-headed cousin would not be the last bit of cartoon chaos they'd slam head first into. But that was all right. They'd dodged frying pans and bulldogs and Dursleys. They could dodge this too. Probably. Hopefully. As long as they stuck together. And maybe, just maybe, brought some giant dog biscuits next time.